So yesterday marked the first day that JK is eligible to get traded, and the first thing he did was demand a trade. And we're here already reacting to Bleacher Report's list of the top 3 teams that could possibly get JK by the trade deadline. And man, I've been excited for this because it's one of those players who have upside and you want to see what their potential ends up being. But if you're another team, you're taking a big risk because the Warriors want good return for Jonathan Kuminga, but we don't know what teams are going to be really buying into his potential. Like when you see him, do you see an actual all-star potential player or just a good piece in a championship team? But let's go ahead and dive right into it. I mean, the first trade we got right here is going to be Warriors getting Michael Porter Jr. I think we went over this one last time before the Bucks. And I have seen this one going around the internet a little bit more as time goes on because I've noticed that a lot of Warriors fans know that they need more offense because Jimmy and Draymond offensively just doesn't cut it. However, I don't know if you look at Michael Porter Jr. as that guy. I've seen people saying that he can just be like the Klay Thompson for the team, like that type of role that Klay used to have. But do you see MPJ as that like caliber of player? Of course, he's a high volume shooter, and this year he's been like great when it comes to his efficiency. But is that how you really see Michael Porter Jr.? Do you really think he can become that player for your team? Because you got to understand, this guy's a young player. So not only are you using this as a guy who can like potentially win now, but also this is most likely going to be a guy who sticks around after Steph Curry, unless you want to trade him post-retirement. But then Brooklyn gets Jonathan Kuminga, Buddy Hield, Moses Moody, a 2026 first round pick, and a 2028 first round swap. If I'm Brooklyn, I mean, I like it. I think you can definitely get more out of Michael Porter Jr. in trade value, but I guess it depends what teams are really interested in Michael Porter Jr. If we're looking at the Warriors, you know they're always going to be an option because of how desperate they are. But if you're Brooklyn, I mean, you're getting Jonathan Kuminga, which you're already rebuilding, right? So you're fine with getting Jonathan Kuminga to see how it goes. Moses Moody, I'm not really too high on, but I mean, it is a young piece. It is a young piece you can kind of try to, start investing some more time into. And of course, you get the first round pick from the Warriors and a 2028 first round swap. If I'm Brooklyn, I like what I'm getting in return because I don't think you really expected too crazy much from Michael Porter Jr. And I think this is probably the highest his trade value is going to be at. So when you look at what you're getting out of Golden State, I would want more knowing what his value's at. But at the same time, if you try to use it too much and he has like a bad stretch or things kind of happen to where teams just get less interested, you don't want to just keep him, and at some point his stock value goes low and you can't trade him. So I do like it for Brooklyn. It's definitely like a last case scenario though. Like I would want them to look at more different trade options that you can get out of MPJ because there's a lot of teams who would want him. But this is definitely one of the more likely ones to happen because of how desperate Golden State really is. But I'm not going to lie, I would be really interested to see how MPJ would fit around Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy Butler. When it comes to the personnel though, I'm not going to lie, like I don't think it's a good idea to have Michael Porter Jr. next to Draymond Green. Like I feel like that would not work at all. When you look at Michael Porter Jr. and what he talks about in his podcast and all that stuff, bro, mentally he is not where Draymond is. And we've seen it with KD and Draymond. If they're not on the same time, like the same type of timing mentally, on like what the goal is besides winning the championship, like how much effort you put out there every day. But I feel like MPJ is not going to fit well with that Warriors team when it comes to the behind the scenes portion. But on the court, I definitely see how it works. Like I really do. But I like it. I'd probably grade it like around a B, which I'll probably start grading all of these things so you guys have an idea of what's going on through my mind when I see these. But I do not think this is a good trade. I don't see why the Warriors would try to bring Klay. I guess it depends on what you're going for. When I'm looking at these trade deadlines for the Warriors, I'm thinking you want to move off of Jonathan Kuminga to really become a championship contender. Now, I don't think you're a piece away. So, like, if we're being honest, none of these are going to become, like, they're not going to become championship contenders because of these. But if you lose Jonathan Kuminga to just bring Klay home, it just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, look, Golden State, you're giving up Jonathan Kuminga and Georges Niang, and they get Klay Thompson and Daniel Gafford, with Utah Jazz also being in there, getting Buddy Hield, a 2027 first round pick via Golden State. The swap. I mean, for Dallas, sure, because you're giving away Klay, who just doesn't fit with your team anymore, and he's not shooting that well, and you're getting Jonathan Kuminga in a buy low market. Like, I think that's a great deal for Dallas, but not for Golden State. Unless Golden State just admits, like, yeah, it's cooked, let's hang it up, let's just bring Klay back for the last like dance or whatever. I think that would be a good idea. But Klay, where he is now, is not going to become a better player just because he's back in Golden State. Because the last stint in Golden State, the last year or two, he was not doing good. So it's not really a mental aspect of things. I just think this isn't... If you admit that the championship stuff is over, bring him home. But from everything I've heard and seen around the league sources and all that, from everything I've seen, the Warriors continuously being aggressive to win another championship, and rightfully so. You have Steph Curry, the greatest shooter of all time, greatest point guard of all time. But I just would not want them to just hang it up and be like, hey, Klay, just come back home. Like, no, I don't think that's the move. But it is a nice way to finish off like their whole legacy. I just wouldn't want. I would give this like a D, like maybe like a C, because like you do get that bittersweet feeling of like, yeah, I mean, he is home. We get to finish it off with everybody that started here, but at the same time, it's like, damn, we're not even gonna try to get the last ring. Like, you can't even tell me that Klay's gonna help them win a championship again. The Warriors getting older is the third one. It's actually the Miami Heat and Golden State. Miami Heat is just always in these trade talks, and like this, like man. I'm pretty sure this is something that might be looked at from the Heat if the John Morant thing doesn't pan out. But I just don't understand. Okay, so we got Norman Powell going to Golden State, JK and the 2026 first round pick going to the Heat. This would just be, I don't want to say like a rebuild, but like we're looking at Jonathan Kuminga being a young guy. So you're going to get younger now and not win now like how you have been for a couple of years. And I'm talking about the Heat. You get Jonathan Kuminga who's younger. So your whole roster is like just as a whole going to get younger because you're getting rid of this, vet Norman Powell who's been great so far. And you just kind of hope that Jonathan Kuminga can become like that small forward, not Jimmy Butler type player, but like a really good wing that's better than Andrew Wiggins. Because if you're giving away Norman Powell and then Jonathan Kuminga ends up being like an Andrew Wiggins type of player, then it's just gonna be like, what was the whole point of this? Like in general, just to see how it pans out. Like this is a trade of, hey, if we couldn't get anything else out and we really don't want Norman Powell here anymore after this season, then we'll go for it. If we just look at the Heat aspect, I mean, you have to pay Norman Powell next season and you probably don't want to. Like, I know the Heat don't really want to pay Norman Powell what he's eligible for, which it says it down there. It's $129 million. And they don't want to commit that type of money to him. And I do understand why. But I just don't see the Warriors trying to take on that contract. I don't see why if the Warriors get him, it's because you're going to extend them, right? Why would you do that? Why would you get Norman Powell as another shooter, super vet, getting even older as it says up there, and you give him that amount of money when you're already paying Steph, Draymond, Jimmy Butler? I mean, look at the amount of money you just paid Jimmy Butler. A lot of these are really like, man, like when you see these trades, you really understand how desperate the Warriors really are. I mean, like this has kind of become, I love the first trade a little bit more than these because Michael Porter Jr. in theory would fit amazing with that Warriors roster. But if we're just looking at like the last two of Norman Powell is not a bad player. I mean, I love Norman Powell. He's a great shooter and he's been great so far. I wonder if they say his deficiencies on here. Yeah, 24 points and 2.5 assists on 48.5, 42, and 85. Like, bro, he's shooting good. So I do understand why you would want him on the Warrior squad. It's just you gotta understand, like, you're really putting it all in on this season because I don't see him playing this good next season, and then I don't see Jimmy Butler or Draymond Green playing like how they are next season. And Draymond Green hasn't been the best this season. You've seen him. The decline from Draymond has been severe, and of course, most of his presence come on the defensive side and playmaking. But just like look at the counting stats, and I know he's not a box score type of player, but there's something that you can't ignore when it comes to like their aging. So would the Warriors want to commit to that? I think this trade and the last one is when you get to that point where you're like, all right, do we want to finish it off with Klay and just be like, we couldn't do it, or do we want to really commit this amount of money to Norman Powell? And like I said, he's a great player, but do you understand the amount of money you owe to your top 4 guys now? And they're all extremely old. You're giving away your pick this season as well. You're handicapping yourself for the next 3 seasons. Like after Steph and all them leave, at least with the Michael Porter Jr. trade, you get a young guy that you can trade out after if you want to flip him for more assets, or you get to keep him and be like, hey, let's build a team around him and see how much we can get out of MPJ, or let's see if we can get another star next to MPJ. That's the type of stuff that I would expect. So the MPJ one, I would expect to see a lot of noise from that. But the rest, like the Klay Thompson, I don't see it happening because I don't think they're just going to hang it up in the middle of the season and be like, yep, we're good. Klay Thompson, like come back home. We're not going to, the chances of you like competing at that point just non-existent in the tough Western Conference. And if you do Norman Powell, it's like, all right, this is it. There's literally no other trade we could have done. It's over. But who knows? I mean, we only got a month away from the trade deadline. And that's really exciting because all of these trades, all these questions that I have are going to get answered in the next couple weeks. So I can't wait to take a look at it. But anyways, if you guys like the video, please like it. Comment if you guys think any of these are a good idea. Subscribe if you want to see more content. I'm going to be posting 3 to 4 times a week. I'm starting this off. I think this week I'm about 3 or 4 videos about to get posted, uploaded. I appreciate all the support. Peace.